Speaking moistly. Keep
Keep
2 meters apart.
Speaking moistly. Welcome everyone to another institution of Speaking Moistly. Yes. Greg, as usual on Tuesday. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well, sir. How are you?
What's a famously ground down, the Sphinx's nose?
Yeah.
I'm feeling like that.
Feeling ground down.
A little ground down.
Feeling decayed and eroded.
A little bit.
With
I think it's probably BS. I think it's rain. I think it has to do with rain. For the Sphinx nose, maybe rain.
Yeah.
But
no, I hear you. It could be pretty exhausting at times.
The whole thing is just madness. The whole thing is just round the corner, round the bend madness.
Yeah. I think for me, it's really the mind state of other Canadians and how just far gone they are, and how it's very like they are demoralized on a whole nother level that they are unconscious of. I think.
Yes, I think so. I think you're not wrong. The whole, you could see it right in front of you. I've made the comparison before of like the cow on the soapbox. And you can see up like the meme of the cow in the soapbox with the cuts of meat, and he's trying to show everybody. And like, if the cows wrote a newspaper, right? And like, they were talking about the other cows who were just magically disappearing. How would that look? Right? Yeah. Like with that. So I've got a screen. I'm going to try and share my screen today because we've got a newspaper article that I want to share. And I shared this with Greg just before the show in the green room here. Actually, just before we even got in the green room, I shared this. I just saw this. Somebody tagged me on this on Twitter. And I thought, no, it's not this in your face, right? It's not that level. And so here it is. It's a Guelph Today article, and it's a tragedy. Of course it is. Family wants U of G's students' memory to live on through kindness. Fariza Naveeb died of a rare disease, thrombocytopenia. It's very bad, very bad.
Thrombocytopenia.
Purpura.
Thrombocytopenia.
TTP on September 11th. So she died on September 11th. Today's the 28th. This is the first paragraph of the article. In the span of a week, 20-year-old University of Guelph student Fariza Naveeb went from being perfectly healthy to losing her life to a rare blood disorder she had just been diagnosed with. Holy smoke. Holy smokeronies. That is just unbelievable to me. And I think that what's your reaction? What's your reaction to that? Like, and not to, what?
Yeah. I mean, I'm totally skeptical now. I'm like totally skeptical of everything that is health related. And I think what we're seeing, there's a double standard when it comes to this pandemic we've been going through over the past 2 years. And essentially, before the jabby jab, before the jibber jabber, okay,
we were all in this together.
Every single health anomaly of a young person dying, for example, something like this, I feel as though it would be attributed to the virus. Yep. It's like, oh my God, this young person died. It must have been the coof. And over the past, like in the first year and a half since the pandemic, since the lockdown, like everyone became increasingly sensitive to like health information of, this medical anomaly happened where a young person died. Let's hear all about it. And of course it was because of the virus. And like, we all became sensitive to these different scenarios when before that, pre-2019, really crappy stuff happened. Crappy stuff happened a lot where like it would be rare, obviously, when a young person would die for some random reason. Yep. And it would be this like terrible health anomaly. It was just like, I don't know. We don't know. And for example, like people would lose their sense of smell sometimes if they got like a really bad case of the flu, or it would be so bad, like the case of the flu would be so bad that it would never actually fully come back. Right. Like all of these things happened before. And by the way, my source is like being good friends with a doctor who I talk to about politics and all this stuff. And this, this is where I'm getting my information. I'm not just kind of spouting off. But I was just going to say now, since the jabber jab, now there's all of these weird health anomalies happening. And it's, and that's just it. Like it is, like, you know, if you even suggest that it has anything to do with the jab, then it's like you're a crazy person. And if you talk about basic science, it's like, what is the variable in this experiment? What is the thing that we've added into this environment that's, I don't know, never been tried before?
Yeah. Rolled out en masse. I worked in schools, and we had, in one of the schools that I worked in, a young woman who was sick. She had a lung disease, and I can't remember the name of the lung disease. She was in a newspaper about it. She was a fighter, right? And everybody was very like, you know, was like, oh, she's gonna do great things, and she did great things in her life. And she passed away before the end of high school. Like there was a whole thing. Yeah, life, man, life. Yeah. It doesn't care. It doesn't care. But like modern medicine had kept her alive until that point. Like without the modern medicine, she had acknowledged that, you know, she'd been in and out for surgeries and stuff, but she had lived a good life, and she was thankful for that. But like tragedies happen, and this happened well before COVID, like this going back to 2016 type deal, even earlier. But like you were saying, like, you know, people got the flu and lost their sense of smell and stuff, but like people died, kids died, like outside of, not outside of illness, but outside of like a sudden illness, like meningitis and stuff. But you can, like, that happened too, right? Like there's situations where terrible, awful things happen to people who don't deserve terrible, awful things to happen to them. And it does, but you don't shut down society for it. And then you don't also do a population level worldwide experiment because bad things might happen, right? Like this is, and so we're right around the bend to the point where people have been so gaslit. You can't even, like, reading the article that we just read and then saying to yourself, I feel like that might influence my future decision to whatever, just because you have a thought that maybe it wasn't the rare blood disorder that got her, that she was just diagnosed with, thank goodness, right? Like they diagnosed her with that just before she died. Like what? Right? Like,
and it's, and that's the thing, like for everyone watching, you know, especially the people who don't like us, if they happen to be watching, me and Mark don't want to be like this. Okay. We don't want to be like this, like, you know, questioning everything we see and being like,
no, you should be questioning everything you see. That's kind
of,
who
but
I
mean, like, but it sucks. It sucks to have to be in this situation. I'm like, I don't think this is what happened. Like, I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure if I trust this or not. But it's like,
it's hard to trust it when there's so many examples, right? Like I showed a reel yesterday on my show, 2 minutes, and like 2 minutes is a long time to hear just headlines of people in exactly the same situation, right? Across the United States, there were English people speaking. Some of them were British, I guess. And at the beginning part of this, it was a lot more British people who were having blood clots because of AstraZeneca. Right? There's nothing you can do, and everybody knows that. And then they sent it all to the third world, and everybody was like, okay, why are we okay with sending blood clot medication to the third world? What is happening? Oh, they've got to have vaccines. We stopped it because it was blood clot. Like there were blood clot issues.
Yeah.
But, you know, let's just send it to the third world. What? So like nobody questioned that. It happened. We spent a shit ton of money on this blood clot medication that we exported to the third world. Nobody said, hold on a second. What? And anybody who, if you did say that, you maybe lose your YouTube channel. You get a strike, you get a flag, you know, whatever it is, right?
I mean, I feel like a huge part of what's going on is kind of what I mentioned off the top, which is, you know, it's kind of a meme, but it's also people are being programmed. We're being programmed. We're being told the program each week, and we're just buying it hook, line, and sinker. And I don't know what's happened, if something specific has happened over the past 2 years, but there's some, like, there's crazy layers to this psychological operation where, you know, like Justin Trudeau simply saying, okay, we're never going to mandate vaccines. and then 2 months later, we're mandating the vaccines.
And it's totally like, straight face about it.
It's like, so do we not, like, he was lying, or are we gonna talk about how he changed his mind, or we're just gonna keep on going on? Oh,
it's like you have, okay, it's like what you're watching a movie and the subject of the movie has like an awful boyfriend who says like, I would never do that to you. And then like 5 minutes later in the movie,
the boyfriend, you gotta leave him.
And then the boyfriend does it, and you're like, I can't believe, like, he's so bold about it, right? And then like the movie cuts to the scene where the sister uncomfortably agrees to go see the family, and they're all sitting around the table, and they're like, so we're going to talk about how terrible your boyfriend is, and everybody's like, oh, get all uncomfortable. That's where we're at with the prime minister. Like,
yeah. Well, no, I feel like it's everything now, though, because like you said, like, if you were to tell a normie, remember AstraZeneca? Remember how it was? Oh, well, yeah, that was unsafe. Totally. Yeah. So like, do you see why
Mello was on Team AstraZeneca?
Well,
the mayor was on Team AstraZeneca.
It really is dystopian levels of creepy, where it's like you can talk to somebody and it's just like, are you all there? Like, are you? Well, the TV told me that all like, I was actually talking to a normie last night, and they were saying all this stuff like, oh, well, and they were basically implying that there's only one illness and there's only one way to die. And you can guess what they are. And it's just like, have we gotten to this point where it's so oversimplified? Where
this is Celebrity Jeopardy.
Oh, climate change and COVID. Like, that's the only thing that people die from. Like, break, man.
Yeah. Oh, well, the climate change thing is really taking off. I don't know if the COVID thing is going to be too good for them to pass up. It's working a treat, isn't it?
Oh yeah, exactly. Like, it's working.
They're just, and nobody's, well, like we said, nobody's really questioning it. And if you do question it, it's like, oh, now come on. Right. Like, there's a situation that happened. I can't remember which one. Somebody, died. Who died? Somebody died. Norm Macdonald died.
Rest in peace.
Terrible, right? Terrible. Rip. So I came into my, talked to my wife when I was making dinner. She came into the kitchen and we were chatting, and I said, oh, Norm Macdonald died. She said, oh yeah, that's terrible. How old was he? He said 61 or something like that. It's terrible. And kind of stood around. There was kind of like a not uncomfortable silence, but like a silence where everybody knew. And I was like, I wonder what his jab status was. And she's like, come on. I was like, oh, well, there's lots of like not quite elderly people dying lately. Like, how come it's not like a cancer that nobody knew about? Oh, okay, Norm Macdonald passing on, right? Everybody, like, we're goldfish, man. It's crazy. People don't remember. Never mind like day to day. It's like something happens.
People are like, you really think someone would die and like we wouldn't know about how it happened? Jeffrey Epstein, like, yeah, I think that would happen, especially if it was like a high profile situation where
the Epstein thing is so crazy too, right? Like, it's he was in like, he had literally paper sheets. And they're like, oh yeah, he totally committed suicide. Straight face, right? Like, the press is on your side. Trust them. Like, okay.
It's just silly at this point. It's silly at this point. It's like apparently the lab is real. Apparently there's really good evidence to say it came from there, but it's like, people aren't nefarious and doing evil things. What are you talking about? It's like, why do we have this lab then? Why is that lab there? That's actually a good point to bring up to people, because it does make them kind of go, I guess you're right. I guess maybe and they were having so much faith in these institutions of they would never do anything evil. Yeah. They just happen to have these labs where they're tinkering with
viruses. And like Fauci's, he's got skin in the game and money in the game, and they're funding it and all this stuff. And it's not like it's not coming out. Like, it's like there's all these all these hearings and stuff.
A good point that someone brought up in some video. They talked about how big and evil the lie is, and it's like, oh yeah, it's way bigger than why normies would like not be able to accept that. Like, it really is like such a massive red pill that it's like you cannot even
you can't
swallow it, not even close.
No, you can't. It's so big. It's so big. Like, yeah, so big. And it's so like what I said, it's bigger than climate change. Like, the lie that we're talking about, let's just pretend that somebody's got nefarious and maybe leaked the emails in 2009 and 2011, but whatever.
Hypothetically
speaking, we're totally not talking about real world or anything like that. But it's like, pretend somebody hijacked like the IFCC and like was able to just assign random data points to historical charts for temperature and stuff and make it look like there was warming when there really wasn't any. So the magnitude of the lie is such that there are enough people there willing to, there's enough money there. Never mind people. There's enough money there that people are willing to, scaffold up that lie and continue it going, because there's enough There's enough motivation there. There's enough, all of that there. How does that translate, right? Like there is incentive to keep it going. And the lie is so big. And the climate change lie is like the difference between the size of the Earth and Jupiter, right? Which is to say magnitudes, massive difference in size, right? Like Jupiter's what, like 100 Earths or something like that. So the lie that we're actually talking about, not climate change, if it's a lie, but whatever, you know, it's hypothetical. I'm just pretending. The lie is so much bigger than climate change that they just dreamed up climate change to balance out the big ass lie that is magnitudes bigger than that. And there's more. COVID, maybe, right? And others.
Yeah, it's
the 2020 election.
And it all comes down to fear, man. It all comes back to fear. And like, it's cliche to say at this point, but it's like, I personally have just been, I think I told you last week, like I'm at the point where instead of being depressed about it, I'm more just like, this is fascinating. Like, this is fascinating.
I was there.
The power of fear over people. And it's like, holy crap. Like this scheme is working so well. I can't believe it. Like, it's actually,
I was there.
Terrifying.
I was there when I realized that mask mandates didn't have any kind of exit strategy. The off-road for mask mandates was, please stop talking. You're bothering the important people, right?
Yeah.
And there's no metrics. There's no metrics for the vaccine passport either. It's here and that's it. They're like, nope.
Yeah.
We love it. It's fantastic. So
yeah, but we need to wear masks and have mask mandates and have vaccine passports to go back to normal. You see. We have to completely change the infrastructure. We need to change what's normal to go back to normal. We need to normalize new behaviors in order to go back to normal. The people actually believe this.
Yes, I realize that. But the funny thing is as well, like the touchstones for back to normal are like being destroyed. How long since like anybody you know has gone down on a 7-day all-inclusive vacation in like Jamaica or Mexico or something like that? Like a while, right? And it used to be like, oh, where are you going? Oh, we're going to go down to Cuba for a couple of days. We're going to do this. We're going to do that, right? It's not happening, right? It's not happening at all. People are.
I mean, I don't know. I'm at a loss for words of how people don't see how it's like, do you really still think it's about health and safety? Really? Like, really? Like you don't see how this could be.
But it goes back to the bigness of the lie. If it starts to crumble in your own head, you have to face that, right? I said today, like when things happen, you can't just like go back and pretend like they don't. You can't unknow something, right? Like you can't unknow something. And then once it's known and once you accept it and the rest of the reality starts to crumble, how far does that go? Right? Like how much do you go back and go, they've been lying since the 80s? No, man, it's way worse than that.
And I think at the surface level, there's a lot of this kind of like surface level rejection that happens.
Yes.
Like you could give them a small red pill and they just like, they kind of like spit it out. Like, I don't want that. Nope. I'm not eating that.
Oh, and they're not even,
they'll make like these completely absurd sort of like dismissive remarks. And it's like, okay, there's no getting through to you. Got it.
Like with the article we showed at the beginning. Should I flash it back up on the screen? It doesn't really matter. The article that we referenced at the beginning of the tragedy, the terrible, awful tragedy that we referenced at the beginning of the show. That girl doesn't deserve to die. At 20 years old, she wasn't at a risk for COVID, really? Right? Like, nope. And so like, why? And you know, is there a direct line between being double jabbed and this blood disease? I have no idea. I couldn't possibly know. How would I know? Right? Yeah. I'm a guy in my garage, right? I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that there's a lot of people dying of something that's not COVID in 2021.
Now,
and what the heck?
Apparently Rebel News published this, and I would like to get, not that I don't trust Rebel News, but before kind of ranting on about it, I would like to kind of get more confirmation if you know or not. I don't know if people have heard this. Apparently, you're not counted as being fully jabbed until 2 weeks after you get the second dose.
I've stayed away from it too. I see a lot of because I don't know. And there are a bunch of people who don't know. There are a bunch of people who claim that they're counting people who have a single dose as semi-jabbed, or like there's a classification for them.
Yeah.
But if people have an adverse event, how are they classified? Right? Like, so like, I honestly don't know. And I've heard in the United States, the CDC said that the classification is until you have 2 weeks post-vaccine, you're not considered fully vaxxed. The rumor is that that they're trying to cover their ass and drop the rates of adverse events being blamed on the vaccine by not saying, but by having that 2 weeks covered by COVID, right? If somebody dies of a vaccine injury within that 2 weeks, and this is rumor, I don't know, speculation, I'm just telling you what I've heard on the internet. I don't want to lend credence one way or the other. I don't know if it's true. But they're saying that if they die within that 2 weeks before they're fully vaccinated, then they get classified as an unvaccinated death or an unvaccinated whatever. And I've heard people talking about it, but it's the internet, man. Who could know, right? Who could know if it's true or not? You could, I mean, you could have like, I could put a video, like I could put a green screen up behind here and have doctors walking behind me, and I could have a doctor's coat on and be like, I'm very serious. Right? How
green
did you
screen
know?
a doctor behind you? That's funny.
Yeah, well, like an ER hospital, right? Like somebody was saying, and I wouldn't do that. Yeah, I wouldn't do that. But like, it's easy enough to do that. I could do it with the limited technology that I've got in my garage and a 10-year-old laptop.
And you have to be careful because there is like they bait like people like us with fake news all the time. Like for anyone watching, like you can't just see something and be like, oh, this is true. It's like, no, you should definitely fact check it, especially.
And I do my best. I've been bamboozled, man. I've been bamboozled. There was one time that I thought a liberal parody account was a real account. And somebody was like, no, and you got it wrong. I was like, oh, yeah, totally right. So, but I mean, we live in the world, man. You're going to make mistakes. If you do anything, you're going to make mistakes. You have to be able to not withstand the mistakes. You have to be able to not make too many mistakes that people just think you're, garbage.
And I mean, someone's pointed this out before, which is because we are, we challenge the establishment. We can't afford to make mistakes as much as the establishment can.
Yeah,
the establishment can
mistakes
after mistake after mistake after like fake news, like incorrect stats, incorrect data. Oh yeah, I was wrong. Like, we'll put that in an asterisk somewhere weeks later.
3 weeks later. Sir, if the state makes a mistake, actually what happened is the unvaccinated made an error, and they should be re-educated and punished.
That's correct.
So, and they're disgusted at the error, by the way.
Yeah. Basically pointing out their mistake was the mistake.
Yeah.
That was the error.
Did you hear about Pawlowski, Arthur Pawlowski?
He got arrested again. He got thrown in jail. Do you know anything
more? Yeah. Do you know? So like,
I'll tell you what. Anything more? As far as I know, he was touring America.
Was he touring America? I was wondering where he was flying from. Like, was he on Ontario?
I don't know if he was touring America necessarily, but I follow him on social media, so I see him come up now and then.
Oh, was he on like InfoWars or something?
I think he was doing the rounds in the US, where he was going to different events and different churches and speaking and things like this. That was months ago now, though. I don't know if that's like still been going on or what. But obviously he's like a very strong, religious man connected to God and Jesus. So like they definitely love him down there in the States. But I don't know the story behind this clip where he's on like the tarmac on the in the airplane getting arrested. I don't know the story. No.
Yeah, well, the only clip I saw was a Rebel News report. Right when it happened, Adam Seuss, I think, is the guy who was reporting, and he said that Pawlowski's plane had been rerouted from the airport and landed at another airport because he had about 70 people waiting for him at the Calgary airport. So they rerouted him, and the police were waiting on the ground for him. And then they arrested him at the airport and they took him to an undisclosed location. And I said on my show this morning, like, basically the people who should know where he is, because I shouldn't know where he is, right? But like the people who should, the lawyers and family and things. This morning, I didn't know if they knew where he was. And it was kind of implied that they didn't know where he was. So that's a departure from like the Canada we know. Usually you'd know your charges, and you'd have a right to get a lawyer and stuff, but his other charges were being dealt with legally already outside of this arrest, and like he was free to travel and stuff. So what happened while he was out of the country? What could possibly trigger that? It's very concerning, right? People are reporting there was a woman who opened her restaurant, and she was saying that she wasn't going to have vaccine passports. She wasn't going to check them. And she got visited by police at her home and at her restaurant threatening fines. They didn't actually end up giving her fines, but they were threatening her. So like the government has got an enforcement arm within the police to enforce these things that aren't really laws, right? Really scary, really scary stuff.
That's man. That's not a characteristic of a free country. Obviously, that's
no. We've got it's a big departure away from what is traditionally seen like that.
I gotta say, just ignore most of the comments from like people online of like these leftists, because like I'm not even sure if they're real. If they are real, they're just like such toxic people that shouldn't be taken seriously. They'll say like, oh my God, all these people are like complaining about like this slight inconvenience. Pardon? Like slight inconvenience?
Wow. They're reimagining the entire structure of laws in the country. Like the laws are right. Our laws are null and void right now. Like,
well, I made a TikTok that kind of blew up with like 50K views or something.
You're like a celebrity.
No.
Canadian famous.
I'm a crap poster. I'm a shit poster. Although my last video got featured on like We Are Change, Luke something.
Nice.
But yeah, he featured part of my comedy video there. But I was gonna say, I just made a quick video saying like, vaccines aren't mandatory. Like you just can't get a double at Tim Hortons. Like they're not mandatory. Like you just have to quit your job or you're getting fired after like working here for 20 years. It's not mandatory. Just like your 12-year-old kid can't play hockey unless he gets the vaccine. It's like these people are actually saying this, that it's not mandatory. And there's even people in the comments saying, oh, well, you know, you can choose to work somewhere else. You can choose to work somewhere else. And it's like, you guys are... I don't know if you're real or not. I don't want to believe these people.
Well, the hijacking of like corporate Canada, the hijacking of like the banking institutions and the like all of it to now that mandate this kind of stuff, like top to bottom. It doesn't matter, like restaurants. I don't want to focus on the banking institutions, right? But like, you know, Manulife and all the banks did it, and the restaurants did it, and so it's like. Oh, all right. So if you want to like work in Canada at all, pretty much, unless you own a business of your own or you do something that is like, like you're not.
It's definitely more of an abnormality to be, you know, against or to not have a vax mandate rather, and I mean, it's I don't know. It's crazy because people say, oh, how could everyone be in on this? And it's like, it's not that like everyone's in on it. It's like they're all just getting pressure from a different place that has the same message.
It's the same reason the big lie works. It's the big lie being like the climate change thing. There's if you incentivize something and you incentivize it by paying for it, money, right? If you incentivize something and there's billions of dollars in climate change, it's like carbon swaps and like you get a basically an investment vehicle that only certain people are allowed to access, and it's guaranteed to increase on the backs of working people because the government's going to mandate that it increases. So like if you have the money, the capital to spin up one of these carbon sink things that the government says qualifies, then you're going to own like part of the carbon tax for the next couple of generations. It's like a Ponzi fucking scheme.
Yeah. And it's weird because I mean, we've brought this up on the show before, but it's like the foresight, like people have such a lack of foresight, it seems, where they think, man, it's, you know, they just came up with these mandates. Like it's just a vaccine passport program. Like things for the next 3 to 6 months will be fine. And I just tell people, think about how much radical change has happened over the past 2 years. Imagine 8 more years of radical change like that. We would have a social credit system by that point. Our restrictions will be taken away to the point where it's like, you know, we're in the big red state with the 5 golden stars. Like it's pretty much, you know, and yeah, it's, I guess we haven't talked about this yet.
No,
but the $1 billion that's going to go towards provinces who support the Vax Pass program.
Yep.
And I'm pretty sure Doug Ford is like, guys, it's just temporary. The program funded by $1 billion
temporary
is just temporary.
That's pocket change, man. That's nothing. Yeah, no, the rollout of this, the idea that it's temporary, the money that they're spending on this, there's no way that it's temporary. And yeah, like they're trying to, I don't think there's anybody that believes that it's temporary. Do you think that we're going to go into another lockdown? When do you think, before or after Thanksgiving? Do you think we'll even have the QR codes before we go into another lockdown?
I'm hung up on what you just said. You don't think people think it's temporary? You think they think it's permanent?
I think most people think, like on Twitter right now, the zeitgeist I think around is that we're going to be under lockdown before Thanksgiving. That the vaccine passports are permanent. But if you like look at the media, they're trying to sell temporary. But most people think that.
I think a lot of normies they're so dazed. They're so dazed, and
I think they want it to be permanent. Don't get me wrong. I think that they can't see a situation where things are safe enough that the vaccine passport isn't necessary. I think they think it keeps them safe, and I think that they ignore all of the evidence. I was showing the Harvard 95% vaccinated cohort is all going online because they're going into, like, Harvard's going into lockdown because of a vaccine outbreak among vaccinated people. And there are multiple, the cruise ships, the 100% staff, 100% whatever cruise ships that are going out, coming back with COVID, baby, because they keep testing them, right? So they're testing positive. So either the test is bullshit or COVID's bullshit. COVID's bullshit too. So this one's not going on YouTube. Fuck it. Speaking wisely.
Yeah, dude. I don't know, man.
All things crazy, man. It's so beyond the pale. We're so far past, like, the mask lie is a shadow. It's a repackaging of the climate lie, right? It's like the same lie, just more.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very, 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 very well advertised product. Like it is like, that's how I think of it. Like my background's in marketing and stuff. And it's like, it's everywhere. Everyone's got their mask, and it's like, what's that make you think of? Makes you think of the virus, and it's on your mind all the time. And it's totally worked. It's totally crazy. And I'm happy to say I'm at the point where I actually don't wear one anymore when I go into the store.
Good job, buddy boy.
And it feels great, honestly.
Nice.
Just like on a mental thinking of like, everything's normal in my world.
It is becoming, it is becoming more often. Yeah. So the other day, one day, a few months back, I walked into Walmart, and there was a guy talking with the guy at the door, and the guy at the door was like saying, "No, sorry, man, I can't do it. I can't do it." And the guy who was arguing with him was like, "Please, can I just put it up like this? I just have to go get a banana." Basically, like, please, can I? And I was like, "Hey, how's it going?" And I walked right by him, right?
Yeah.
And I said, "It's as easy as this. I'm exempt." And I walked past, and he was like, "Doc, could you just go in?" And I was like, "Yeah, man." I said, "Come on in, it's fine." And I just kept walking, assuming that he would walk with me or just like walk in. And the guy kept standing there arguing with the guy. I got my apples. I looked back. I was like, "That's weird." But virtually the same thing happened yesterday, the day before, 2 or 3 days ago. I was walking in, and somebody was having an argument with the person. I said, "You could just say, 'I am exempt,' and then walk right by them and ignore it."
And there's so much to say about that, because a lot of it is your confidence, your state of mind. You're living in a state of love, not fear. Like if you're living in this like fearful state, it completely changes the way you approach a situation. It changes your body language. It changes your like aura of other people.
Yeah.
And it's almost like they say that, animals can like smell fear or whatever. Like that exists obviously in humans as well.
It does. I agree with you.
And it's a very powerful thing. And I don't know if we've probably mentioned this like a while ago, but there's a lot to be said about how physically sick and like real life sickness people will get if they're constantly living in fear all the time.
Oh yeah. Do you remember
it's not just the mental illness part of it. It's also like you are going to become a weaker person if you're constantly living in this state of fear and the state of anxiety, and you're thinking about sickness all the time.
Yeah.
Like if you're constantly thinking about that, then your body is going to, It's
react that way.
It's going to react. It's going to make your immune system weaker. And it's I mean, I've heard that 50% of illnesses are like psychosomatic or something like that.
Yeah,
like
man,
that's
for sure.
A big part of it.
There's a thing called Munchausen syndrome and Munchausen's by proxy. Munchausen's is you get yourself sick, I believe, and then you get yourself sick to feast on the attention that you get because you're sick. This was like popular in the 80s. Yeah, it's a thing though. It's a thing. It's a mental health thing. But Munchausen's by proxy is a mother, usually a mother, not always, but usually a mother. I think a father would behave differently. I think I've heard
this, yeah.
But a mother gets their child sick and they get off on the attention that the sick child gets. This is a situation that just like enables Munchausen's by proxy on a level that is just unseen. So like if you were a parent who worried about their child having an airplane fall on their head, so you made them wear a helmet all the time, somebody would intervene on that child's behalf. But the society has said you might get a virus, so you have to suffocate yourself all day. Nobody's going to intervene on that, and that's a darn shame. Because, well, I've spoken at length about that to the Guelph and Wellington Dufferin Public Health, and they've not done anything to rectify the removal of bodily rights for kids, which is a shame.
Yeah, and that's the really the chilling, scariest part of all this.
It is, man.
Is the whole, we're normalizing so many twisted things on children right now.
Have you seen cuties?
A 12, if you're 12 and up, you need to be ID'd to like sit in a restaurant now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, children are becoming like Netflix is promoting. Well,
can you imagine being a 12-year-old right now?
Oh man, no.
Like imagine being 10 or 12 when this whole thing started.
Yeah.
And now it's like, I need ID now.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, you need ID now, kid.
And also you're the age of majority, and you have and you get to be front and center for all of this pressure if your parents are saying no. And like they're setting up a battle between the kid who's being indoctrinated and taught at school that this is safe and healthy and all that other stuff, and the parents saying no for whatever reason. The parents are saying no, conscience, religion, whatever it is, and then 20-year-olds are dying of brand new diagnosed lung disorders, and comedians like Norm Macdonald are getting cancer, dropping off like that, right? It's just
and this is the thing, the numbers. We're always shown all these numbers, and I really feel like a reset has happened recently, because this is actually the normie I was talking to the other night, and they were saying how, you know what, a little while ago, before jabs were the whole talking point, people were actually really coming together against lockdowns and really being like, we're sick of this, and like, let's stop these lockdowns. Like there was some unity starting to happen, and along with that whole cycle of the lockdowns, the numbers, the cases, and then like, let's get rid of this stuff, there was a sort of like common debunking of the numbers, in a sense of like, like these cases are kind of out of proportion. The deaths are a little bit kind of inflated because they don't mention comorbidities. And like the people who are just dying of specifically the one virus is like, a 6% versus like 94% have comorbidities. What's the average age of death? Like when you go into those numbers and see what they actually look like, then it's like, it tells a different story. But now with the jabs, they've done this. It's almost been like a reset. And now everyone's talking about like, oh, who's in the ICU? How many are jabbed? How many are unjabbed?
Well, I mean,
and it's a very simplistic way to look at it all still. Like this is a very basic question that I don't even think that they specify. Like, how many people are in the ICU for various reasons? Is it all, are we supposed to assume it's all because of the virus? Like that's a very stupid assumption that we all made if that's what we're supposed to believe.
In Alberta, they have the numbers that are non-COVID and then COVID and then.
Oh, they do have that.
ICU. Okay. Yeah, they have it broken down like that. Yeah. But it's not consistent. The reporting is not consistent, and the numbers are not consistent. Nothing's consistent.
But like, what if somebody got in a car accident and they tested positive for the virus?
That's a COVID death, baby.
I see.
Unvaxxed COVID death.
See, well, this is the thing, right? Like you start to like actually look into the numbers.
They probably vent him for 4 days too, just to say he's on a vent in the ICU.
It's like, I made a tweet the other day, and I feel like it was people liked it, but like I feel like it's actually a lot deeper than people realize. It's an onion. Yeah, it was this tweet, guys. Let me No, but it was, what was the tweet? It was, COVID is a lot like Drake's new album. It's like really overhyped, you know? And, and the thing is, well, if people didn't know this, Drake recently has been doing this thing of his past couple releases where he basically games the system on Spotify. Spotify is the biggest streaming service. And if you get in touch with all the people that make playlists on Spotify and you get your new tracks onto these playlists, you are going to significantly inflate the number of streams that you get on Spotify. If you game the system this way, you are going to become the most, like, you're going to break those records of, I'm like triple platinum because everybody streamed my thing in the first week. And this was very clear. He did this like a few years ago with like Scorpion, I think it was. It's a very, kind of forgettable album, like, not many great songs, but he broke all these records with this like crappy album because he was able to game the system by playing the numbers. Yeah. And that's happening right now with, of course, like, the testing and everything, where like they kind of just inflate the numbers and like it gets all hyped up. And that's why I hate to say it, but like, I'm all about anecdotes now, and you can call me some dumb idiot and that's fine, because I understand where you're coming from. But it's like, I believe what I hear. I believe what I see, like from real people who I know. I believe in their experiences. And because I am so tired of this, like, well, look at the numbers here and look at the numbers there. And Drake's album, he's the greatest artist of all time. And it's like, these numbers have been like played with.
Yeah. Well,
they say numbers don't lie, but it's like, well,
you can make numbers lie.
The people who doctored them certainly did,
Well, it's like when the Phantom Menace came out and they were like, oh, Star Wars has made more money than any other Star Wars other than the other Star Wars. Right. And then Titanic came out, but like, if you had to adjust for inflation and all sorts of, like, you have to, like, to make it even, you have to like play with it and stuff. So anyway, regardless, I think this is a good place to end it. The whole world's gone batshit crazy, man.
Well,
and I'm sorry we couldn't like head it off of the past.
I will add to that, because with this conversation with this normie, they were talking about, because I was talking about the anecdotes.
Sorry, anecdotes. Carry on.
Yeah, they're talking about the anecdotes of my doctor friend who was, and I was telling her about, and I don't want to get this YouTube channel nuked, but we were talking about early treatment and how it exists, and how it's like, my friend doctor has been telling me, he's like, he's helped 50 different people by giving them this treatment when they had the virus early on, and it's helped them. And some of these people were at high risk, and some of these people, like, their other family members died because they didn't have the treatment. And like, why aren't we talking about early treatment? And she's like, oh, well, what are you talking about? Like, this is just like one patient. Like, what about the rest of the doctors in the world? Like, what about all the other doctors who are on the same page about this? And I just told her, I'm like, yeah. And in the 60s, they said 9 out of 10 doctors recommend Lucky Strike cigarettes. This is literally an advertising technique. Like, it's literally,
buy it.
Yeah. Like, this is a marketing technique, bro. Like,
in the Middle Ages.
Come on.
This feels very much like a fractured religion in the Middle Ages, right? Like, like people were like, listen, we really like this kind of Christian, this kind of, which was it? The St. James Bible or whatever, the Lutherans.
There's a perfect example of this. I saw this guy on TikTok, and he's talking about is it mayor of New York or something?
The new governor,
maybe the new governor.
Yeah, the new governor.
And she talks about God. She talks about, like, you're one of the smart ones because you got jabbed, and like bringing in God as well. And she even has a necklace that says that she got the jab, and it's like, holy crap! Like, this is we're ascending. Like, we're ascending.
Yeah. Well, I mean, with the child sacrifices and everything. It's the whole thing.
Oh yeah, it's you're a sinner and you have to repent your sins. You are a dirty unjabbed until you.
But I'm saying, even like the myocarditis is it overwhelmingly favors younger, right? So like teenagers are taking the jab.
This is another thing the doctor says. He says for young people, in my opinion, they're more at risk of getting an adverse reaction than just faring off with the Delta or whatever,
And they don't care.
They don't care.
Nobody's going to do anything about it, right? And
still mandating it. They are.
I wonder if they will be next week. We'll see. I don't know that there's any, I don't think that there's any kind of signal that there's any kind of off ramp coming. Like, it looks like they're doubling, tripling, and quadrupling down. They're like, the government is at the point where they're leaking images of like isolation camps. They're like, oh, you won't want to go here. Okay, don't tweet this one out, right? Like, just to,
well, you probably talked about this on your show already, but the military, oh yeah, we thought this was a good opportunity to use propaganda on our citizens.
Yeah, I saw.
By the way,
I called that.
Isn't that neat?
I think I called that when the actual wolf story came out, and I was like, what the heck? This is probably not true.
What story?
Because it was, there was a wolf. The whole thing was they were putting articles in newspapers talking about like wolves in like some northern Quebec town, like wolves that were threatening.
How long ago?
It was like 2019. It wasn't that long ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was doing my show at the time. I remember seeing it, and then I remember seeing
so you saw some weird article about wolves, and you're like,
yeah, there was definitely like, I was like, this is there's something weird about this, right? And then,
I mean,
6 months later, it was like,
it's all kind of adding up, right? Because remember, in early 2020, like they had basically perfected the news cycle of like, oh no, guys, this is it. They have a week and a half attention span, 10 days. All right. So we just introduce a news item. If it's a big enough news item, like maybe we'll do it for 2 cycles for 20 days. And that's why it's like this totally like infantile, like group conscious that we all have. Remember, it was like, oh man, 2020 was so bad. First, there was like the Iranian bombing. Then there was the like murder hornets. And then like the virus. Oh my God. And it's like, are we really that like pathetic that whatever Google feeds us that week or that month is like, that's all we're going to talk about.
It's not just, no. I think that there's different levels. I think, and Google, whatever this is hijacking a more base level. You think, but most people are burnt out putting their most important thoughts into their job, right? Like most people put all their stuff into the job and then there's nothing left at the end of the day, right? Okay. So the news is hijacking something that's lower level than your critical thinking skills. It's getting in there between. Interesting. When your security system's down almost, and it just hijacks that way. Because it's people because you have the ability to wake people up. People, when they start thinking about it, go, holy shit, you're right. But when they don't think about it and they're not invested in it, right? If there's nothing to kick them out of it, they'll just carry on because they're burning themselves out, but they got to live, right?
So you're saying most people consume news like it's reality TV, almost like passively, kind of just.
Yes. As if it doesn't really matter to them at all, right? Like as if it's happening to a third person, people don't realize that this is where the rubber meets the road, baby. Like we're living it right now. That's it.
Oh yeah.
You have what you do today. That's what you're going to do tomorrow and the day after that and day after that. That's why I do everything I can every day, man. That's why I put my show out every day. I get up at 5 a.m. I used to get up. I'm getting up at 6 a.m. now. My wife was getting up too early. I was like, all right, I'm sorry. I'll wake up later. But I get up early, man, because my brain starts and it's like we only have a certain amount of time to get stuff out, right? So all you have is today. Make the choice today. Any last thoughts for today, buddy?
No, we got to end on that. You can find me at Greg Wycliffe on Instagram and YouTube. You can find me on Twitter and TikTok at GWG DDUB. That was probably backwards, but
it's all good, man. You can find me at CanadaPoly.com, CanadaReport.co, Canada's SpeakingMoistly.co, and not on YouTube, but on Rumble and Odyssey and all the other ones because YouTube's stupid.
Speaking Moistly.
Thanks for watching, everybody, and check us out next week.
Keep 2 meters apart. Speaking Moistly.
Boom, boom, boom.